Welcome back to the Paul Chandler Show, everyone. I'm your host, Paul Chandler. In tonight's episode, we're going to be covering dissecting an operation report. We simply just call it an op report. That's one technique that can be difficult for coders to be able to master is here's a very long op report. The doctor goes typey in the documentation. We're looking at all these words. We have the header up on top and then the body, which has the paragraphs on the this comma, this, as in I made a 3 centimeter incision here and I did this and I did that and blah, blah, blah. Thing is, though, as far as the coders, we don't need to use all of that. So in tonight's episode of the Paul Chandler Show, we'll be looking at an op report and I'll be coding it from scratch, as in fill in the blank, as in real world coding. So that way we'll be looking at my screen while I'm dissecting that report and you can follow along as well. So stay tuned and we'll be right back where we'll be dissecting an op report. Now in the op report, I tend to prefer to do the diagnosis coding first, because by being able to find the correct diagnosis codes, I should say, depending on the case, then to me that helps match the procedure codes, because first I have to know what are we doing it for, as in meaning what the condition is, to help me match out then what type of procedure we're doing it with. So look at the diagnosis codes first. Here we have the pre-op and post-op diagnosis. And then we also have, in this case, a final diagnosis section. Now, because we have a final diagnosis section, I'm going to be looking at the post-op diagnosis, which in this case we did highlight the pre-op, but because pre-op and post-op are the same here. And then I'm also going to be looking at the final diagnosis to see if there's any additional information that I need to pull from there to give me the most descriptive ICD-10 code or codes. So in my post-op diagnosis, I have rapidly enlarging suspicious lesion on the patient's right forehead. So we have a lesion that the doctor does not know what it is, and its location matches the patient's right forehead. And then the final diagnosis, I have skin, right forehead, wide local excision, keratoconthoma. That sounds like a good pronunciation. Possible squamous cell carcinoma, margins are free of tumor. So the only information here that I really care about is the keratoconthoma for right now, because that's a definitive diagnosis. So I know the patient for sure has that, and it does say possible squamous cell carcinoma. So in this case, I'm not going to be coding the possible squamous cell carcinoma because it's a possible, meaning that's what the doctor thinks that the patient has, and not a definitive diagnosis on that part. So possible rule outs, perhaps, this is what I think it is, anything like that, we do not code. We only code the definitive diagnosis. So in this case, the phrase there where it says possible squamous cell carcinoma, possible is the key phrase for us. And that's just notation for the doctors on the medical record side, nothing that we use in our coding. So here we just have the one condition, the keratoconthoma. So I'm going to be looking that up in the ICD-10 book in front. And let's see here, K-E-R-A-T, K-E-R, H-I-J-K. K is probably, really small section, not even 2 pages. So here I have keratoconthoma, K-E-R-A-T, keratitis. Okay, if you have an AAPC book, 2018 ICD-10-CM, I have keratoconthoma, page 232, middle column, the 4th line from the bottom. Keratoconthoma, L85.8. In this case, there's no box with a check mark in it that says I need additional codes or characters, I should say, additional characters at the end of this code. So L85.8 is a valid code. However, though with the rule in ICD-10, Never code from the front of the book. We always go to the back and verify. L85, 85. Okay, L85.8 takes me to page 753. And I have L85.8, other specified epidermal thickening and cutaneous horn. Okay, so nowhere do I have the term keratoconethoma, the term that I looked up in front. I do not have that term specifically in the back when I look up L85.8. With that being said, though, it did say in the front of the book, keratoconethoma is L85.8. So that would be my diagnosis code there. And again, so that's the one diagnosis code that we have because just the one patient's condition and that's it. So now looking at my CPT codes, I do have operation perform, wide local excision with intermediate closure of right forehead. So the doctor is doing an excision, do not know yet if it's benign or malignant, but they're closing it up with the intermediate closure of the right forehead. And remember that with the closures, with doing an excision, benign or malignant, if it's closed by simple repair, then that is included in the excision code. However, intermediate or complex we code separately because it's more work. So now I'm doing that type of closure repair first. And I'm actually going to look up that code first. So even though remember that we do an excision first and then the repair closure second, chronologically in the op report, we code the most complex or the most difficult procedures first, since those have higher reimbursement value. They have a higher RVU, relative value unit, so the higher reimbursement value. So we code that first to get the proper and highest reimbursement possible. So looking in the CPT book, looking in the back, I look up closure. The back of CPT takes me to page 854. Closure is actually right in the middle. Looking down from closure, I have valves and fistulas and leaks, but nothing about skin. But under closure, it does say see repair wound. So that helps me. So I'm getting rerouted in the back. So look up repair instead. Repair starts middle bottom of page 992, middle column. About 2.5 inches from the top. And what am I repairing? I'm repairing skin. So we actually have two ways how we can do this. If we look up repair, then skin, that takes us to the right part of page 995. So I can either go repair, drop down to skin, then drop down to wound, W-O-U-N-D, and then I see my intermediate, 12031 through 12057. I need the intermediate closure of the right forehead. So that's one way we can do it. Repair, drop down to skin, drop down to wound, then drop down to intermediate, which have 12031 through 12057. Or I can go to repair wound, then skin. I'm sorry, repair, then wound. No skin here. Go to repair, then wound. That'll take us to page 996. Wound is in the middle column, about a third of the way down. So repair, drop down wound. Then we have complex, intermediate, or simple. And we get the same codes there for intermediate, 12031, 12057. Doesn't matter which way you want to do it. One has one extra drop down, but we're just talking about an extra half a second or 1 second of work. So now I'm looking up 12031 through 12057. That takes me to page 85. And this is part of the reason why we highlighted the parent codes, 12031, 12041, and 12051 to help us with the locations. And I need the right forehead. So 12031, scop, axillae, trunk, I got one trunk, trunk, and or extremities, That's not it. 12041, neck, hands, feet, and or external genitalia. That's not it. So 12051. This better be it, or else we're in trouble. Face, ears, eyelids, nose, lips, mucous membrane. We have forehead, and that's on the face, so that works. So 12051 is the parent code. Now we need the measurements. Here we have a whole lot of numbers. We have maximum diameter of 1.1 centimeters, 0.3 centimeter margin, 1.7 centimeters. There we go. The total incision was 3 centimeters. So this part here tells us the size that we are closing up. The parts above it, the maximum diameter of 1.1 centimeters with 0.3 centimeter margins for a total resection of 1.7 centimeters, that's what we're going to be looking at when we are talking about the excision. But we're actually closing up 3 centimeters worth of skin. So from 12051, I need the code for 3 centimeters. 3 centimeters would take us for the CPT code. In this case, this is the first code, 12052. And because 3 is between 2.6 and 5.0 centimeters. So that's the code for the closure. Now we need the code for the wide local excision. So in the back of CPT, I'm looking up excision. Excision. Excision begins on page 882. Middle column towards the bottom. And what are we excising out? We are actually excising out a lesion. But this is also has 2 ways how we can look this up. So if we look up excision first, then drop down to lesion, that would take us to page 884, middle column, about 2 inches from the top. And then from lesion, we can drop down to skin. Takes us really towards the bottom. And then we have benign or malignant. So we can either look up excision, drop down lesion, drop down skin, and then benign or malignant. So excision, lesion, skin. Or we can reverse it and look up excision, skin, lesion. So excision, dropping down to skin would take us to 885, page 885, middle column at the bottom. And then from skin, we have lesion benign or lesion malignant. Now in this case, we would actually have this being as a benign lesion because wide local excision, keratoconthoma, possible squamous cell carcinoma. Squamous cell carcinoma is a type of malignancy. So because of the fact that it says possible, essentially possible malignancy, we do not know definitively for sure if it is malignant or not, and we never assume. So we would code it as the healthier status of the patient. So that would be an excision benign, starting with code 11400 in that large ranges there. Takes us to page 80. And we have the highlighted parent codes 11400, 11420, and 11440. And location is, first we got the location, we got the right forehead. So 11400, trunk, arms, or legs. That's not it. See 11420, scalp, neck, hands, feet, genitalia. That's not it. 11440, face, ears, eyelids, nose, lips, and mucous membrane. That sounds good for the right forehead. Dealing with the face. 11440, now I need to get the measurements here. We have one maximum of 1.1 centimeter. So that's the lesion. 0.3 centimeters. So 0.3 on top, 0.3 on bottom. So 1.1 plus 0.3 plus 0.3 gives us 1.7. So just double checking, the math here is correct. For a total resection of 1.7 centimeters. So it's code 11440. That would give the parent code, and then the kit code, the correct measurement would be then 11442. And here we do modifier 51. Again, remember, we do modifier 51 for multiple procedures. Whenever we're not using modifier 59 for distinct procedural service, we have to use modifier 51 for multiple procedures to state that we're doing multiple procedures. Because, just to be redundant, having two CPT codes itself does not reflect enough, I guess, that we're doing two procedures. And again, to reiterate, we would be putting the closure, or the repair closure first, because that is the most comprehensive CPT code, and then the excision code second. So we put the most comprehensive code first, and then followed by the second or least comprehending code second for higher reimbursement rates, modifier 51 on the second code. We have a total of two CPT codes, 12052 and 11442 modifier 51, followed by one diagnosis code, ICD-10-CM. We have code L85.8 for the keratoconethoma.
Thank you for your time watching this episode of the Paul Chandler Show, where we cover dissecting an op report. I hope that what you learned tonight you'll be able to take back at your office, whether it be your office or your home office, and use that when you're coding real world to be able to take the op report and do the translation into the codes that we need in a quick amount of time, and that way it can also improve your accuracy as well. Again, so thank you for watching this episode of the Paul Chandler Show, and have an awesome rest of your day.